So Ron DeSantis recently signed a bill requiring AAPI history to be taught in Florida schools. And this is obviously after he banned the teaching of AP African American Studies earlier this year. Now I just want to shout out this creator who basically made a video saying that whatever version of AAPI history that Ron DeSantis in Florida would approve would likely uphold racist ideology by way of the model minority myth. For anyone who doesn't know, the model minority myth is a set of beliefs that include the idea that Black Americans should lift themselves up by being more like East Asian and other immigrant groups that found economic success despite racism. It's this idea of, if they can do it, why can't you? And when these beliefs guide people's policy decision, it results in them being against provisions like affirmative action, reparations, and generally any policy that would address anti-Black racial disparities. The important thing to realize, especially in this context, is that the model minority myth is almost entirely based on people's warped understanding of American history, specifically Black and Asian American history. For example, when the myth was first being created in the 1950s, the US News and World Report quoted a social worker saying, "It must be recognized that the Chinese and other Asian people were faced with even more prejudice than faces the Negro today. We haven't stuck Negroes in concentration camps, for instance, as we did Japanese in World War II. The Asians came back, and today they've established themselves as strong contributors to the health of the whole community." Now, despite the fact that Black people were actually put in concentration camps just a few decades prior to this statement, this is wrong for another important reason. The core fallacy of the model minority myth is that it's based on a historical false equivalence, which is when people try to equate two things that are seemingly similar but actually quite different. Though Black Americans and Asian Americans are both people of color and face racism in the United States, we have very different histories in this country. The vast majority of Black Americans descend from those who were kidnapped and enslaved, oppressed through Jim Crow laws, segregated through redlining, stereotyped as criminal or primitive, affected by mass incarceration, and so on and so forth. Whereas most Asian Americans, especially those in these wealthier communities who are propped up, came to the United States after the Immigration, Voting, and Civil Rights Acts of the 1960s. Perhaps even more importantly, they entered the United States at a time where Black people specifically were being entrenched as a permanent underclass that other ethnic groups could use to build an economic foundation for their communities. As one quick example, this creator recounts the stories of how Asian American business owners would only get loans from white bankers if they set up shop in poor Black communities, and this is the same time that these bankers would not give loans to Black business owners trying to create something in their own community. And before anyone tries it, that's not to make a qualitative assessment on who had it worse, but instead to highlight the very real historical reasoning behind the economic and social differences between these two demographic groups. And unless the Florida API history course touches on this and other intercommunal dynamics between communities of color, it will likely feed into whitewash narratives that warp reality and end up further cementing anti-Blackness through the American education system. But do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments and follow for more.